Welcome everybody to the 2:15 session on day 2 of Nerd Summit. The current session is, or the next session is going to be Learn How to Use Inkscape for Beginners, and the presenter is Stephanie Luz.
Thank you, Aubrey. Welcome to my tutorial on Inkscape. I'd like to welcome everybody here on this conference call. It's such a weird time. It's awesome that Nerd Summit was able to hold this virtually, so I'm really excited. If you have any questions, I have my chat window up. I'll try to take some time to look at it every so often. But what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to go down like a few tools. I'm going to show you how to use a few tools in Inkscape. So let's get started. I also did this kind of an interesting way. Instead of doing slides, I thought, let me do my slides in Inkscape with layers. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so I just basically talking about myself. My name's Stephanie. I currently live in Framingham. I have 2 cats, Common and Cloudy. I have my wonderful boyfriend who's right next to me. He's actually doing the next presentation on Jamstack, so stay in the room to tune into his talk. He has a company, Janku, and I've always been interested in design, and I thought, what is a better way to learn design than to start trying to teach it? And I needed a program to design in, and Illustrator is very expensive. All these proprietary softwares are expensive. So I was like, how am I going to do design without having some software? And finding Inkscape, it's free, it's open source, it's a vector graphics software. And you can download it. There's a version 0.92, which is the one I'm currently using. But they actually have a new one. It's 1.0, and it's in beta version, I believe. So there's still some kinks they're trying to work out. So if you're looking just to design, you're not looking to really, send feedback on how the software can get better, I wouldn't recommend using the 1.0 because there are a lot of bugs. It will crash every so often. But I did actually create videos. The Janku portion, this is where it comes up. The Janku portion of it, we have a YouTube channel and we upload tutorials. So I taught myself Inkscape by creating different tutorials on the different tools. So I was learning it while I was teaching it. So yeah, that's these 2 thumbnails here. Are actually how to install the different versions of Inkscape. You can find the 1.0 beta release and the one I'm using right now, which is the 0.92 version. All right. All right, so I'm going to move to the first tool. It's the square and rectangles tool. So this is going to be a bit basic. If anyone knows how to use Inkscape currently, it might be a little bit slow for you, but I figured there might be some things here that you could learn from. So basically, I've just drawn out a few shapes here. You can just easily, actually, that's not a square, that's a circle. I know why. I'm gonna change this right here. All right. Oh. Live demos, everyone. There we go. Okay, if you're drawing, if you want to draw a perfect square, hold down Control. I'm using a Mac. I'm not exactly sure what you would use for a PC. It's probably very similar, but that draws a perfect square. Now, if you want to draw a rectangle, obviously, you can draw it however you want, and you can come up here in this height and width window, and you can change the dimensions there. Now, to get the rounded corners, you can head to the Edit Paths by Nodes. And here's this circular node here. You can click and hold Control, and it will adjust the corners of the rectangle equally. If you don't hold Control, it'll only smooth one side of the rectangle. This holding control makes sure that it's equally smoothing out the corners, if that makes any sense. Seems to have frozen. Are you guys still seeing me?
Yep, I can still see you.
Oh, okay. I think my program's crashed. Yeah. All right, hold on, guys. Yeah. Oh, error right here. There we go. All right. Now it's not sharing the screen right now, right? All right.
Nope, not yet.
One more time. All right, we're back. So that's pretty much self-explanatory for the square and the rectangle. Let's continue. We got the circle, ellipsis, and then this weird shaped one here. Just like the square tool, if you hold control, you'll get a perfect circle. Oh my goodness. This program is not working for me today. There we go. Okay, perfect circle. If you don't hold control, you can change the height and width of the ellipsis. And then there's another option here, which a lot of people don't see at first, but if you have the circle tool selected, you can come up to this change. And what that does is it allows you to cut out pieces like a pie. So if we start, let's say we start -1, what it's doing right now is it's saying, okay, this is the start point of how much of the circle you want to show. And in degree, it's kind of like, I mean, just showing you right now, if you increase that size, it's going backwards. And then the end, yeah, I just playing around with those different tools, that'll adjust the way the pie kind of looks. You can select this tool here. Let me just, and it gives you a segment of the circle. And if you decide that you want to complete the circle, you can come back to this tool and complete the circle. So we're going to move on to the triangle. Now, I was looking for the triangle for a while. It's under the star tool. If you click and hold, I don't know what's going on with this program. All right, here we go. And it starts off this odd shape. It has corners pointing into the center. You can make it more triangular by making sure you're on that star tool and making sure, I think if you zero this out, 0.5, and you get a perfect triangle. And so this just makes it easier. You can draw out everything in Inkscape, but it's much easier if you can have these shapes to work with from the beginning. I'm trying to think. There's also ways you can round the corners, playing with these different ratios up here. There's randomizing. I'm not exactly sure why you would use that, but it just takes the corners and randomizes where they go. And it's not even a triangle at that point. Then there's corners. You can add corners to it. So I don't know, for a program that's free, it's pretty amazing what you can do with it. All right, let's move on to the next one. So
make sure you have that layer selected or else you can't click it.
Oh, okay, thank you. So on this one, obviously selecting, you'd go to the select tool, but there's actually a cool trick for selecting different objects. You can hold down Option and Command. And when you do that, it draws a line, and everywhere the line passes is the only objects that you select. So it's only selected those squares. I thought that was a really cool feature. If you have a lot of different objects and you want to select only a few, I'd recommend using that feature. All right. How to align and distribute. I use this tool a lot. So we have all these circles. I'm going to go over, this is, by the way, another way you can select objects. Just make sure that when you click, hold, and drag, you're surrounding everything. You're surrounding the whole object. If you only select part, it's not going to select the object. So make sure when you're hovering over, select everything. And then we're going to go to the align and distribute. So right here, these, actually my icons might look a little different from yours. This is an icon pack that was a custom icon pack that was installed. But there's the same functions. So you can align it to the right of the edge and make sure, so actually, let me step back a second. When you're aligning, this relative to button says, what do you want these objects to be aligned to? So they give you an option of aligning to the biggest object, the last selected. You can have a page. I've actually removed the page from Inkscape just because we don't need it for this example, but it will align to whatever you select. I'm going to align by the last selected object. So let's align everything here. I'm going to select these. And I'm holding Shift while I'm selecting, so that's another way you can pick a bunch of objects at once. And now I'm going to select this object, which is the last selected. And then I'm going to align on this left edge here. And you'll notice they all do that. So you can also do this horizontally. If I were to select this, now they're all at this axis, the middle axis, the horizontal axis. And it's, I mean, I use this tool all the time. Let's see, this tool here, let's say you have circles and you want them to have an equidistance between them all. So what I can do now is I can select all of these, and then there's distribute left edges or distributes from the center of the object, and so on. There's all different options. I think what I'll go with is distribute left edges. And so it's all distributed the same difference from the left edge. There are different sizes, so they might seem like they're a little farther or closer to each other, but it should be equally proportioned. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to show you, I'm going to get the same size objects, and let's just do that one more time. And let's align them, and you got perfect distance. Because this is a basic course, I'm just going to review some of the things that you're going to need just starting off. There are just so many features to this program. All right, so let's get back to our layers. All right, layers is sometimes a confusing thing for people. If you use Illustrator, you know, you're probably aware of how to use layers, but layers work in a similar way. I've used Illustrator in the past. So first of all, when you're on one layer, let's just say you just opened the program and you created these 3 squares. Within this layer, there are different what's the word? There are different layers within the layer. So you can see that this square is on top of this blue square and this red square is below it. So you can change the, let's see if I can get the word. It says page down, page up. You can change where it is, the front or back, by using these tools right here. This will lower the selection to the very bottom, and this will raise the selection to the very top. So let's say I wanted to take this square and lower it just once. So just not all the way to the back, but just below this blue square. I'd go to lower selection one step. And you can't tell because it's a different color. I'm going to change the color of this. So you can see that it's between those two now. If I was going to push it down, it'd be all the way down. So that in itself is already a way that you can layer things. But let's say that your drawings get a bit more complex and you have a lot of components and you need to keep things organized. So if you take a look at this tutorial, I've actually organized things in layers. I've started the welcome screen, and I've hidden the welcome screen by hitting the eyeball, and it goes away. So how do you do this? So one way you can do this is you can add a layer here in this layer screen. If you don't see this window, you can hit Shift Control L and that'll bring up the window for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add layer 2, and I'm going to say I want it as a sub layer of this layer's layer. So let's take this red triangle and let's move it to layers 2. Okay, so what does that do? Let's raise this selection to the top of the layer. Now I'm going to take this green square. Okay, this is below the red square, but let's now move this to layer 1. Now I can't even see it anymore, but you'll notice in layers 1 is because the eyeball's closed, which means it can't see. When it's open, you can see what's going on. But now you'll notice it's below the red square. If you want to change the order of that, you can click, hold, and drag above the layers 2, and it'll shift the position. So this is useful if, let's say, you have multiple objects. So let's take this, let's move this into layer 1. So this is a great way of changing position within just by dragging and dropping. And you can see how an image looks without a certain object. So it's I don't know, I use it a lot, and I was able to create a presentation that way, as you can see. These locks on the side, let's say that you don't want this red square altered. You can click the lock, and that way if you're editing and you're changing things in the space, it's not going to affect what you've already created here. Actually, let's see which one I created this in. When creating objects and you're really focused on your layers, make sure you know what layer you're in before you start doing that. So if I were to click on this layer and try to make an object, you can't because it's locked. If I go to layer 1 and make sure that's open, then I can start drawing. But again, it will not allow me to touch that locked layer. All right, let's unlock that. All right, I wanted to see where my comments were. Jim, are there any comments on this currently?
Let me see.
I'm going to move on to the next thing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
There's people saying cool.
Okay. All right, so combine shapes in Inkscape. I've gone ahead and I've created some objects, just some squares and circles, but let's say that I want to alter these shapes. I want to combine them. Let's say I want to make a microphone out of this square and circle. Let's go ahead and align these. And I'm going to go to Path, and I'm going to select Union. So this way, now if I go to my Edits Paths node, you'll notice that this is all one object. Whereas previously, if I clicked on this Edit Paths by Nodes tool, these are two separate objects. And actually, I'd like to take some time to explain this a little bit. So this is a selector tool, and this is very easy to resize objects, but this Edit Paths by Node tool is where you can pretty much pull apart the objects. Actually, you know what? I'll explain this. I have another slide that this will work better for. Let's go back to the joining. So that's one way to join objects. But if you notice in the Paths tool, there's a lot of other selections. You can click intersection where it only keeps where the objects intersect. So let's take two different colors here. And let's go to Path, Intersection. Oh, I have to select the other one as well. Make sure you have both objects selected. And then it will only cut out that intersection. And so there's all different kinds of ways to manipulate the objects. One more thing here. So if I were to combine this object, now I don't understand why it does that sometimes. I think to prevent that from happening, let's change its color. A good way to prevent that from happening is, this is a square object. If you go to Object to Path, it will make it so it is no longer a square object, it's just an object. And I know that seems like that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it will make more sense in my next slides. All right, so let's try to join these one more time. I'm going to select both of them. I am going to combine. Oh, that's why. It's because the combine works a little differently than union. All right, let's break apart. And I think once you union it, you cannot break it apart. But if you combine it, you can break it apart. Okay. So let's go back. All right, so Inkscape has a text editor, and you can enter text by clicking on the A, and you can click, drag, and hold. Oop, not on the text editor. Click, drag, and hold, and it'll allow you to start typing. You can go to Google Fonts and you can import fonts. So I've actually added fonts to Inkscape that weren't currently here, but they already have, you know, a decent sized font library. So yeah, you can just enter font there. You can resize it by holding down Control and dragging those arrows. Trying to think what else. If you have a paragraph of text, so let's just reduce this again. Let's say you have a paragraph of text. I hit return. So this is actually accommodating pretty well, but sometimes, hold on. there's a little circular node that pops up when you have too much text on the screen, and you can, it's, for some reason it's adjusting. Usually it doesn't adjust for me, but you can resize the font. If it does it. Modify selected path. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I can't find there's
On the left hand side, I see it.
a left hand one? It's usually on the right, I thought. No, that's not it. So I think I'm probably doing something wrong. I can guarantee you I'm doing something wrong here, but typically there's a little dot that shows up and you can resize the text window. It's not showing up for me right now, but that's okay. I'm not going to cry about it. All right. So breaking apart objects. Now this is the same slide because right now this is identified in Inkscape as text. But let's say we want to make this objects and we want to edit the different letters. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go to the path, object to path. And let's make sure that was selected. All right, and this is where the edit paths by nodes comes in handy. I can go and select each of these different letters now and edit them. I can move them, but they're kind of still combined. So just going to make sure they're ungrouped. And then that's basically it. You can do this in the same way. Let's say you uploaded an SVG online and it's all grouped together. You can just right click and ungroup. As long as you go object to path, that should allow you to play around with the different letters. So, and then if we go back to the nodes, the paths by node, let me zoom in on this E. I can take this point, I can stretch it out. So it's just very versatile. I love this program. All right, let's move on to gradients. Now the way gradients work is you go to the fill and stroke window, and you can access the fill and stroke window by clicking Shift, Control F. But basically there's, for the fill, that fills in the middle of the square. The stroke is this perimeter, which is currently white at the moment. Let's give it a color. Well, it was also transparent. All right, so there's the stroke. And then on each of these different, so for the fill, I can do gradient, I can do radial, I can do all sorts of things, and I can do that for the stroke as well. But let's focus on the inside, the fill. So I'm going to move over to this linear gradient tool. And Inkscape always provides two nodes where you can edit the colors to fade into each other. So it typically chooses the existing color that you had as the left solid color, and then it just fades out to transparent. You can of course edit these. If I were to select this circular node and then change the transparency, the gradient goes away because I just removed the transparency, but now I can change the color. And let's say that I wanted more variation in the gradient. I can go and double click. Let's go to this edit gradient tool, and I can double click anywhere on this axis. And if I click one of the nodes, I can go over here and change the color. And I can change the color there. And if we want more variation, let's say we want more of that orange coming out, I can click, hold, and drag, and I can pull the node away from the other node and just kind of play around with it. And I can do the same to this one. And they stay linear. You can't really play around with the positioning of these aside from going along the linear axis, but still pretty cool. You can also do radial. So it works the same way, except now you have this L shape and you can adjust the gradient that way. Add transparency. And, you know, I didn't really cover the fill and stroke window, but obviously you're going to be using this a lot. It gives you all different options for the different kinds of color formatting. I use HSL. That's just what I've become used to. You can use whatever you'd like. But so this eyedropper tool right here is very useful if you just want to, let's say, pick a color off the Nerds logo. You can use it while having that fill option selected. And then the stroke, the same thing. And it will change the color to whatever you eyedrop. You can also, if you have the code online, you can just change it right there. The FF at the end is to indicate that it's not transparent. Okay. So.
Yep, just an FYI, you probably
Yep.
just have a couple more minutes left, but I guess Jim is right after you anyway, so
yeah, I don't mind edging into his time. All right, thank you. Okay, so there's just a couple other items here. Let's see, clip and mask. I'll just go through this quick. If you draw a rectangle, and let's say I just want to clip out this cute little guy here, I'm going to hover over that little guy. I'm going to select the object, going to go over to Object, Window, Clip, Set, and there you go. You got the little guy. All right, let's add some drop shadow. I'm going to select the rectangle. I'm going to go to Filters, Shadows, Drop Shadow, and then I can select Live Preview and play around with these little axes to see what kind of drop shadow effect I get. And my favorite one, if you take two squares, just copy and pasting these, select both squares and you go to Filters. Where is it? I think it's, oh, it's extensions, my bad. Generate from path and interpolate, and you do a live preview, and you can play around with these to get different amount of steps, they call it. Essentially, how many squares is going to put in between until it blends into the other square. And that I thought was just a really cool feature. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. We have a like I said, the YouTube channel where I've posted videos of all of these steps online. So if you have any questions there, you can see them there too. And that's it. Okay, there is a question. Are the objects still there after you have done intersection? I think the objects are edited and they're not. I think it just deletes whatever's outside the intersection. So I don't believe so. Clipping, on the other hand, the objects are still there. It does retain the objects. So if you're going to do that with intersection, just make sure you have a copy somewhere. And that's it.
Awesome, that was great. It was really cool to see what you can do with Inkscape because I've never really played with it, and it looks like it's a lot better or easier to use than Illustrator is. I've tried using Illustrator. I don't really know what I'm doing, but this looks way more straightforward.
Yeah.
This reminds me a lot of, if you remember Macromedia Fireworks or Adobe Fireworks.
I
It
don't
kind
think
of
I've
reminds me of that. And that was a really cool program I really liked back in like 2005.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it was, I don't think Adobe, I think Adobe discontinued it, but it was something that was around that had a lot of, it was kind of like Illustrator, but it felt a lot more straightforward. So it feels a lot like Inkscape. And I know Inkscape's been around for a long time too, I think. That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like an avid user of Illustrator. And so I was like really bummed out. I was using, this was back in school and we all had free licenses. But I was like bummed. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know any software that can handle, what Illustrator could. And once I learned how to use Inkscape, it's like I don't miss Illustrator at all. It's really awesome. Mickey, yes, free software.
All right. If there's no more questions, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.